Good day and welcome to Fusion Mobile. Today we're going to look at approximation and estimation. Approximation and estimation. Now what we're going to cover in this chapter is we're going to work with mostly decimals, and by decimals I mean numbers that have points. For example, we might have numbers like 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Now let me explain the concept of decimals. Initially we have whole numbers. Examples are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. In between these two numbers, for example 1 and 2, there are other small numbers. Let's say you have a ruler that looks something like this. If you have this as 1, 2, 3, in between 1 and 2 you have other smaller points. Now these points are represented as numbers between 1 and 2, and they are counted as decimals. So you have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 down to 1.9 before you now get to 2. In between 1 and 1.1 and 1.2, you also have other smaller numbers. For example, 1.11, 1.12, 1.13. Now that's the concept of decimals. Now what we're now going to do is how to round up decimals, or how to approximate decimals to the nearest whole number. Let's say you have 1.5. To shift it to the nearest whole number. Now let me explain this to you. Between 1 down to 2, you have 1.1, 1.2, up and until 1.5. Then you count to 2, 1.9, then to 2. So 1.5 is just in between 1 and 2. Just in between. So if we're now talking about approximation, it's easy to approximate 1.5 and convert it to 2. So from numbers from 1.5 upwards, if you are told to round them up to the nearest whole number, you convert them automatically to 2. Now for numbers less than 1.5, if you are told to round them up to the nearest whole number, it now becomes 1. What I mean is this. Let's say you have a decimal like this, 1.2, and you're told to convert to the nearest whole number. To the nearest whole number, since this 2 is less than 5, the nearest whole number to it is 1, because it's closer to 1 here. So 2.5 to the nearest whole number becomes, the nearest whole number to 2.5 is 3. Other examples, 4.6, the nearest whole number is 5. And that's because this 6 is greater than 5. So the nearest whole number, this rounds up to 1, which you add to this, and this becomes 5. So 2.3, this rounds up to 0, and the nearest whole number now becomes 2. Okay? So 2.7 to the nearest whole number becomes, this rounds up to 1. The 1 now goes to this person, and this becomes 3. That's the nearest whole number. So that's the concept of nearest whole number. Now let's look at decimal places. Okay, let's take this as our first example. 23.46 to 1 decimal place. Now observe this number very well. 23.46. This is the decimal point. This 4 is called the first decimal place. The next number is the second decimal place. Now if you have another number, let's say 2.3567, this is the first decimal place, second decimal place, third decimal place, and the fourth decimal place. Now our question says 23.46 to 1 decimal place. So that means 1 decimal place is this, and that means we'll round up 6. When you round up 6 is greater than 5, so it rounds up to 1. You now add the 1 to this 4 and it gives us 23.5. so this is 1 decimal place. Do you understand? Let's take an example. Our next example says 14.7678 to 2 decimal places. Now 2 decimal places is this. Once you count the 2, now look at the next number. The next number is greater than 5, so it rounds up to 1, which we add to this person, and that becomes 14.77 to 2 decimal places. So now our answer will have 2 decimal places here. Let's take another example to further clarify the point. 14.7648 to 1 decimal place. To 1 decimal place, that means we just need 1 decimal place. So since we need 1, which is this, we'll round up the next number after it. So since this is greater than 5, it rounds up to 1, which will add to this number. I will now have 14.8 as our answer. Now let's look at another example. 14.723 to 2 decimal places. Now to do decimal places means we'll stop here. Okay, so this 3 is up to 5 and it rounds up to 0, and our answer now becomes 14.72 as our final answer. Okay, now let's look at significant figures. Now when you talk of significant figures and decimal points, it has a very subtle difference. Now when you talk about significant numbers, any number greater than 0, this is a sign for greater than, any number greater than 0 is regarded as a significant number. So 1 is a significant number, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are all significant numbers. Okay? So if you have 1.09 to 2 significant numbers. Okay? So let's look at this example very well. 1.09. 1 starts the number. This is where we'll start counting from. We'll start counting from, when you talk of significant numbers, we'll count from the first number. So 1 is a significant number, so this now becomes a significant number. This is a significant number 0, and that's because it's immediately after the 1. So we'll take it to be a significant number. This is significant. But assuming we had a number like this, 1.0, or let's look at 0.023. This is not significant. This is not significant because it's following a 0. So we will regard it as significant, unlike when we had this. So this is now significant because it's greater than 0, and this is significant. Okay? So now let's take our first example for these significant figures. So the first example goes this way. 0.00674 to 2 significant figures. Now looking at, this is not a significant figure, is 0, this is not, and this is the first significant figure, this is the second significant figure. So we'll take this and round up the next number. 4 is less than 5, so it rounds up to 0. So our answer now becomes 0.0067 as our final answer. Now let's take another example. 0.00678 to 3 significant figures. Now 3 significant figures. This is not significant, this is not, this is not, this is a significant figure. So this is already a 3 significant figure number. But we are told to convert this to 2 significant numbers. Now this is a significant number, so we'll start counting from here as our first. This is the second, and we'll cut it from here. But this is greater than 5, so it rounds up to 1, and the 1 will now add it here to make it 8. So our answer now becomes 0.0068. So with these examples, I hope you understand the concepts of significant numbers. So this is where we will stop at for this chapter. Now we have some examples. What I now want you to do is click on Take Quiz and solve all the questions under that.